What's up, everybody? Welcome back. We're here with some more NFL DFS picks and lineup advice. This time for the single game showdown slate on DraftKings and FanDuel. Thursday night football, New York Jets, Cleveland Browns. This will be the final Thursday night showdown video of the season. Don't worry, we'll still have plenty of videos for the playoffs. But let's talk about tonight's game, where we will discuss the injuries that impact the slate, low risk lineup construction tips, and those strategies to help you win those large field GPPs with the biggest prizes on both DraftKings and FanDuel. Welcome. I'm Brian Jester, co-founder here at Occupy Fantasy, single game $1 million winner. Let's not waste any time and let's get into it. Jets versus the Browns, and we will start on the Jets side. Zach Wilson remains out with that concussion. Trevor Siemian will get another start. We look at Siemian last week, 49 pass attempts against the Commanders, just insane. Not sure we can expect that every single week. Just 26 against the Dolphins here, but Simeon expected to draw the start tonight and be the quarterback for the Jets. Who else we got here? So if we scroll down, we will see that Greg Zuerlein is questionable. Added to the injury report, they added Austin Seibert to their practice squad. He is 50-50, extremely iffy. Good news, we will know if Zuerlein is going to kick or not probably by 4 p.m. Eastern. They have to elevate Austin Seibert from the practice squad by that time in order to do so. If Seibert is not elevated, Zuerlein will kick. If Seibert is elevated, it likely means that he will kick. Now, the bad news, Seibert is not in the player pool on either site. Sometimes FanDuel will add players late in the day. DraftKings has come out and said that they will not do that historically. So if Zuerlein is out and Seibert is in, we likely will not have a Jets kicker in the player pool. Now, some back of the roster information. Alan Lazard is questionable with an illness. We still expect him to play. Most guys who are questionable with illnesses do indeed play. However, he was demoted to the wide receiver 4 last week, ran just 14 routes while Jason Brownlee took over his starting role in the offense. And then we have Jeremy Ruckert, who's out. Has been their tight end 2 the last couple of weeks since CJ Uzama has been out. With Ruckert out, that means we will see. Let's find him down here. Kenny Yeboah, who once infamously had a million touchdowns in a single preseason game. He'll be the tight end 2 tonight. They also called up Zach Kuntz from the practice squad. So if you're really looking and diving deep for your mass multi-entry lineups, those are the Jets tight ends to think about. Now, on the Cleveland side, we do have an impactful injury to monitor, and that is Amari Cooper. Did not practice all week. Questionable with what was deemed rest early in the week and then heal later in the week. He is a true game time decision. Most beat reporters were not concerned about his availability. Remember, the Browns are still trying to cement a playoff spot. Cooper played through injuries last year when the team was playing for nothing and wasn't practicing all week. We expect him to play here. Now, Tom Pelissero did come out this morning on Twitter and say that he knows his body, not Pelissero, but Amari Cooper knows his body. It's trending in the right direction, but it's still iffy, still up in the air. We'll know more closer to game time. I would build as if Amari Cooper is going to be in. Let's monitor reports throughout the day. If he's out, that just means a much bigger role for Elijah Moore and Cedric Tillman. And finally, they have kicker issues as well. Dustin Hopkins is out. If you remember, if you watched the game last week, he was injured mid-game. The Browns went for every 4th down in opposing territory, went for every 2-point conversion. That was probably not the entire reason, but a part of the reason why Flacco and Amari Cooper went off, because they were going for every single 4th down. Hopkins is out. Riley Patterson will do the kicking for the Browns tonight. He is in the DraftKings player pool. Riley Patterson is not in the FanDuel player pool as of 10:30 a.m. Eastern when I'm recording this. So there's a very real chance we have 0 kickers available to us on FanDuel and just 1 on DraftKings, depending on the status of Greg Zuerlein. Again, that will impact how we build, and we'll need to monitor probably until 4 p.m. Eastern today on the Jets kicking situation. All right, let's talk about low-risk contests, 50-50s, double-ups, head-to-heads, where you just need to beat half the field to double your money. If you have read our showdown guide, you've watched these videos before, you know we'd like to deploy 2 strategies in low-risk contests, lock up all the scoring by playing workhorse running backs, both quarterbacks. That means if there's a touchdown scored in the game, there's a very real chance that we have a piece of every single one if we roster those players. And especially on DraftKings, we like to play any standout values. If we look at tonight's slate and we try to do this strategy, and let's just say we start with Breece Hall, the workhorse running back for the Jets. Joe Flacco, out of retirement seemingly and absolutely crushing it. Trevor Siemian. Jerome Ford split snaps mostly with Kareem Hunt last week. A majority of that was game script related. He has been out snapping Kareem Hunt in that 2-to-1 ratio when games have been competitive. This game is about a touchdown favorite for Cleveland, so should be relatively competitive. So Jerome Ford is the preferred option here. That leaves us with 28.50 left per player. We could punt the position with one of those guys I mentioned earlier. We could play Israel Bandakanda, who has overtaken the number 2 running back role for the Jets over Dalvin Cook. We could play Jason Brownlee, Cedric Tillman, these guys. However, what I think the field might do, and what looks pretty good when you look at just raw projections, is since the Browns are big favorites, since the Jets offense is pretty miserable, we might see people in low-risk contests captain the Browns. This will allow you for more salary flexibility to fit in these guys. Now you have $2,800 for just one player. You could play Brownlee. You could play Abanikanda. You could do whatever you want here. I think this is probably the preferred approach. Now, if you don't want to play Ford or Simeon, I understand that. You could play Garrett Wilson. Amari Cooper, if he plays, yes, he had literally 1,000 points last week. Much tougher matchup this go-around against Sauce Gardner and DJ Reed. So would prefer playing Garrett Wilson between the 2 receivers. Njoku will be relatively popular here. You could play Njoku as well. So lots of ways to play it. Hall, Flacco, Browns defense are the 3 that you most likely have to fit into your DraftKings low-risk lineup. Now on FanDuel, a little bit different. Let's go over there. Per usual, it's much more difficult here. Flacco, Breece Hall, Simeon, Ford. Can't do that. That is just $3K left per player. Let's try replacing Hunt for Ford. $5,500 per player. Not great as well. Really what you want to do here is look at the mid-range. The mid-range on FanDuel when you play low risk, and again, it's not really a slate that we will recommend playing low risk contests because of the lack of value and how expensive some of the running backs and quarterbacks are. But if you do play these slates, generally the best approach is playing 2 to 3 guys from this mid-range, this 8,500 to 10,000, 10,500 range. Look at guys like Njoku, Garrett Wilson at 11,500. The Browns defense, obviously. Again, potential for no kickers here. So if we did this, Flacco and Hall are head and shoulders above the rest of the guys that we're considering for low-risk contests. Browns, Njoku, 7,500 per player. We could play Tillman, Brownlee, Abanikanda. That is possible. If we wanted to go a little bit more balanced, we could go Kareem Hunt. Then we could play Zerline if he's active, Conklin. Different ways to play it, but I think Flacco, Hall, and then 2 to 3 of the mid-range guys is the way to play if you decide to play low-risk contests on FanDuel tonight. Now, let's discuss high-risk contests, large field GPPs, small field GPPs, satellites, leagues, exponential payouts. You have to beat a lot of people to win a lot of money. First, of course, let's get the water sip in, and shout out to my guy Bob. Gave me the on-air cup for Christmas for these shows, so thank you, Bob, for that. Not a true sponsorship as we've been looking for, but we will take it. So on-air glass will stay on these shows for the water sips. All right, now let's talk about these high-risk contests. Let's go back to DraftKings here. Now, this total is 34.5 points. If you've watched many of the recent videos, if you've read a few of our recent daily plugs at OccupyFantasy.com, we have been discussing what to do in low total games. I will link it again here, the New England game from a couple of weeks ago, where I displayed all of the charts and all the data on how to approach low total showdown games. Seemingly, since I have brought those charts out, every low total game has exploded for 50 or more points. Remember, that game scored 50 points. The Chargers and Raiders game scored nearly 100 points. Broncos and Patriots this past Sunday night scored 50 plus. So yes, we've been getting our asses handed to us on these low total slates. And yes, just because the data says this is what has happened historically, it doesn't mean it's going to hit if the game goes over the total. So ideally, we will get a game that goes under the total, maybe sometime in the near future, and those trends will come into play. Again, so go back and look at that video, pause it, or after this video, go back and look at it. But either way, in that video and in the plugs, the 3 main ideas we've discussed when it comes to low total games is leaving salary on the table, playing running backs and wide receivers at captain or MVP, and playing defenses heavily on both sites. I guess there's 4 things. and using more zero quarterback lineups because they hit at a much more frequency, a much higher frequency than just in your regular showdown game environment. But the issue with tonight is these builds are going to be much more popular than they were on those slates, which of course means it's likely going to hit tonight because it is more popular. Now, because we don't have at least one kicker on FanDuel, and we may not have two kickers on DraftKings, Browns and Jets defenses are going to get elevated ownership. They're going to see high ownership regardless with these two offenses and given their prices. But if Zerline is out and we can only roster Riley Patterson, if Zerline's out and we can't roster any kickers on FanDuel, that just means even greater ownership for Browns and Jets defenses. So what that means is, yes, higher ownership. The field is catching on. And it's not necessarily the field is playing the trends. The field is just playing that these offenses turn the ball over, both sides, and the Jets struggle to score. Therefore, the defenses will be popular. That doesn't mean we can't deploy those strategies. What we can do is lean on those other trends, playing more lineups with zero quarterbacks, playing running backs and wide receivers more at captain and MVP. And more importantly, and probably the most important, is leaving salary on the table. Because if a game goes under the total, there is less scoring, and there are more ways for lower price guys to outscore higher price guys. So leaving salary on the table, and we've gotten questions about this the past couple of videos. I'm thinking in small field, you can leave $1,000 or more, sometimes even $2,000 or more. In large field, you can leave up to $5,000 or $6,000 on both sites. We've seen it happen many times when it comes to lower total games. And yes, if you're hand building, it may seem really difficult to leave that amount of salary on the table. And again, this only applies if the game goes way under the total, which it could. A 50-50 chance under 34, and even if it hovers around 34, these trends still come into play. So zero quarterback lineups, more salary left on the table, playing defenses heavily, and using running backs or MVPs at wide receiver. At captain. Running backs and wide receivers at captain or MVP. Just a couple more thoughts here that I want to hit on for some player takes. Let's scroll down. David Njoku, yes, he's been on fire lately. 16, 29, 27. Technically, he's been overperforming his opportunity. We've talked about underperforming wide receivers and tight ends on these shows frequently. We don't have any underperformers for this game, unfortunately. But there is the flip side of that coin, overperformers. Njoku would qualify. Probably could figure that out with 4 touchdowns in his last 3 games. But the target volume is there, right? We're talking 23, 31 targets in the last 3 games with Joe Flacco. The target volume is safe. Will he score 20-plus points? Probably not. But if he scores 10 to 15, that could still be enough on this slate. So not someone you want to fade completely given the lower total game environment. Tyler Conklin on DraftKings especially, we expect to be popular at 5K. Let's look at Conklin. Let's bring him up. I mean, the targets are super consistent for a 5K player, 77695. So he'll be extremely popular. We project 30% or more flex on DraftKings. On FanDuel, let's scroll over here. 8K won't be as popular, but people will still be clicking him over here as well. The one concern I have with Conklin is this youth movement for the Jets. This could very well not come to fruition, but we've seen it with Allen Lazard. We've seen it with Dalvin Cook. Who's to say we don't see it with Tyler Conklin, and his snaps are reduced in favor of Kenny Yeboah, Zach Kuntz, who they called up for the practice squad. Now, with Jeremy Ruckert out, that may put a dent in any plans they may have had to reduce Conklin snaps with less experience and just less bodies on the roster at the tight end position. But still something I would be wary of in building my lineups. Let's look at the final rotational players, guys priced under kickers and defenses. This applies to both sites, FanDuel and DraftKings. These are more large field GPP plays, maybe small field in some senses. So let's look, guys priced below the kickers and defenses. Xavier Gipson is their wide receiver 2-3 now, playing mostly out of the slot. He's going to see tons of routes tonight. Same goes for Jason Brownlee, who overtook that position from Lazard last week. 3 targets, did catch a touchdown. Famous for his training camp and preseason performances. So Brownlee, a talented guy, will be the wide receiver 2-3 tonight, run 30-plus routes. Cedric Tillman, the wide receiver 3 for Cleveland, was an underperforming wide receiver last week, then just saw 2 targets. But again, a guy who's going to see at least 2 targets, but likely more at this price tag on an offense that has been pretty powerful the last couple of weeks. Yes, a tough matchup against the Jets defense, but he should see the least amount of attention compared to Elijah Moore and Amari Cooper. Abanda Kanda, we talked about, now the running back 2 for the Jets. 9 rush attempts last week, 6 opportunities the week before. We would love to have that at $2,200. Pierre Strong, running back 3, will get a couple of opportunities here and there. Would need an injury to Hunt or Jerome Ford to be super useful tonight. Harrison Bryant, tight end 2 for the Browns. Not a ton of targets, likely 1, maybe 2, but in play if you're building 150 lineups, especially in a lower total game. Jordan Akins, number 3 receiver, going to see a target or 2 at $800. Again, these are guys you're just mixing into your 20 max or your 150 max player pool. And then we talked about Kenny Yeboah and Zach Kuntz, super deep plays for your 150 max lineups. Not necessarily sure you have to go this deep on tonight's slate. I think guys like Abanikanda, Brownlee, Tillman are the 3 I would look at the most for small field GPPs to save salary, guarantee yourself a couple of points to help you fit in one more higher priced player. All in all, super interesting slate. It's going to be a gross one, I think. Fingers crossed we actually get a lower total game for once. I keep talking about these lower total games. Eventually it will hit. And just a reminder that these are high-risk strategies, and just because we lay out the data doesn't mean it's necessarily going to hit. We lay out the data because we know the field is not going to build their lineups that way, and we can take advantage of that because historically they have provided leverage to have big paydays. So that'll do it for this video. Make sure you are subscribed to the channel. Again, this is the last Thursday video, but we'll have a Saturday video out for you as well for the Showdown slate. We'll have playoff videos, obviously main slate videos here through the end of the regular season and the playoffs all the way through the Super Bowl. So subscribing is the best way to get notified when those videos go live. Give us a thumbs up if you like the video. That lets us know that you want to see these videos next season. If you like them and want to see this series back, give us a thumbs up. I will monitor the YouTube channel throughout the day. Drop any comments or questions or concerns on the YouTube video below in the comments section. I will get back to you. If you want more in-depth discussion, check out our Discord channel, our Discord server, occupyfantasy.com/Discord. Link is in the description below. Chat with other members of the community as well as our staff. And if you want more in-depth information, you want that extra edge. Yes, you watch these free videos, but you're the type of person, I want to know everything about this slate, and I want the edge that other people may not have. Then check out occupyfantasy.com. Our daily plug will rank players for tonight's slate for different contests, give you lineup construction tips for various contest types, more slate notes, more contest selection tips, everything in our daily plug. Our Occupy model is up and running with projected ownership rankings for both sites, and our lineup builder allows you to build up to 300 lineups. I use it every single slate, no matter how many lineups I'm building, to build optimal lineups. So, Brian Jester for Occupy Fantasy, thank you for listening, and good luck in the final Thursday Night Showdown slate of the year.